Chapter 1. My Neighbor. This all struck me as a surprise. No word, no sound, no nothing from that house in 4 months, and now it was lit up, loud music blaring, and there was a non-American car in the drive. As far as I knew, the only neighbor on the block who didn't own American was February. She owned a convertible Beetle. Everyone else, including me, had American-made. And no one on this block could afford a Porsche, not in their lifetimes. Even living there for such a short time, I knew my neighbors because this was a small Indiana town. We'd lived there a week and we'd met all our neighbors. They'd come over with cakes, cookies, and casseroles. We'd been invited to Christmas parties, we waved and called hellos or goodbyes, or even walked over to have a gab if we were out shoveling the walks or getting in our cars to go somewhere or we were coming back. We chatted when we ran into each other at the grocery store, post office, Frank's restaurant, or a high school basketball game. Kate, Kira, and I had lived there for 4 months, and it felt like we'd been there 14 years. But I didn't know my neighbor with the shiny Ford pickup who lived next door, and I didn't know them because they were never home. Now, whoever they were, I was going to meet them. I stomped through the snow, hearing it crunching underfoot even with the music. The top of the snow had refrozen with the frigid night, but I didn't feel a thing. I was too angry. I had to work tomorrow, be at the garden shop at 8, which was only a few hours away. I'd been woken up with AC/DC's Hell's Bells, and had been tossing, turning, and fuming ever since. Now my blood was boiling, and I was going to have to take care not to lose control. I had a temper, unfortunately. I didn't blow often, but when I blew, I blew. And one of the reasons I was angry was because if Tim was here, he'd be doing this. He'd have done it 3 hours ago, approximately halfway through Hell's Bells. Tim liked his sleep, but it wasn't that. He didn't tolerate anything that might bother his girls. If it woke me up, it would wake him up, and he would know I'd been disturbed. That would tip it for him, and he'd be out the door like a shot. He'd take his gun, and he'd take his badge, and he'd take his pissed-off, big man, hotshot cop attitude, and he'd put a stop to it. Make no mistake. Fuck, but I missed him. I made it to my neighbor's front door and didn't delay. I lay on the doorbell and knocked on the door, knowing they'd never hear one or the other, and even with it both, it would be a miracle to be heard over that sound. It was now Van Halen. David Lee Roth was singing Panama, another of my favorites. It was a memory song. Good times were had when that song was played, good times being ruined by that song being used to piss me right the fuck off. I knocked louder and kept my finger pressed to the buzzer. "Hello?" I shouted to the door. It was thrown open, the blazing lights from inside blinding me for a second. I focused, my blood cooled about 100 degrees, and I stared in complete shock. "Who are you?" she asked on a shout over the music. Holy shit. It was Kenzie Elise. Kenzie Elise. Kenzie freaking Elise! I'd seen nearly all of her movies, except when she started to branch out and do those crappy art house films which made little sense to me or the critics, even though she was doing them trying to become known as an actor rather than a rom-com sweetheart, and she kind of failed at this endeavor. I loved her movies, especially the rom-coms. The thrillers were pretty good too. I loved her. She was awesome.